The Detroit Lions are pretty banged up, but that's the story around the National Football League. Football is 100% injury rate. And as we go into week 7 to face the Baltimore Ravens, we're going to be undermanned because we have now exhausted everyone on the practice squad when it comes to running back. We have Jahmyr Gibbs, who Dan Campbell said was feeling a lot better. He was out there practicing. He should take the field on Sunday against the Baltimore Ravens. That will be 24 days since the injury. He played the Green Bay Packers and was out with an injury. Then we have Craig Reynolds. And then after that, we also have Devine Ozigbo. So right now we have no reserve running backs. If anything was to happen in practice to any one of those guys, there would be no reserve to dip into. And so it makes you wonder what the Detroit Lions are going to do when it comes to depth at running back. And we got some other positions that we're running kind of light on as well. But shout out to Pride of Detroit, man. They got the returning the eligibility for people to return from injured reserve. Now, I didn't know this until right now that the Detroit Lions teams only have 8 players per year that they can elevate from injured reserve in a given season. So this is going to be very tricky. That would explain why they have not elevated Hendon Hooker, because they want to make sure that they save those positions for people who can come in and compete right away. And we have Teddy Bridgewater as the backup quarterback, so it's really not a position for Hendon at this moment. So he could we might not even see him this year at all. Now, if we go to Pride of Detroit, here are the eligible players to return from injured reserve. You have the Hendon Hooker. He can play he's eligible to return anytime. You have the Nate Sudfeld, who's out. Zonovan out. Jason Kabinda can return week 9. Shane Zylstra can season ending. Matt Nelson can return week 8, which is next week. Josh Pascal, his 21-day evaluation has started. And just for reference, that simply means that he has 21 days. The Detroit Lions have 21 days to decide if they're going to elevate him to the active roster. If not, they have to shelve him for the remainder of the season. You also have James Houston able to return week 7. Emmanuel Mosley, we know that he's out for the season. And CJ Gardner-Johnson is eligible to return in week 7 as well. Now, just because they're eligible does not mean that they will return. We had 2 players already, Julian Okwara and Khalil Dorsey. They returned in week 6. So that means the Detroit Lions only have 6 more spots all year long to decide if they're going to elevate somebody from injured reserve back to the active 53-man roster. Now, we saw that CJ Gardner-Johnson posted on his stories or Instagram or something that he's trying to get back for, first it was December, but then he said the divisional round, which is, I want to say, the end of January. It's the game before the conference. So that means that the Detroit Lions would have to win their first playoff game if they indeed don't get the bye. If they get the bye, then they would go straight to the divisional round, and CJ Gardner-Johnson could return then. That's a tall order for a guy that hasn't played in like 4 months at that time. And then you'll bump Tracy Walker out. So that we're going to see how that he's eligible to return. That's what he's shooting for, but we don't know just yet. Now, this one, I think this one might change you guys' mind on the situation with James Houston, because every time I bring up a pass rush, you guys tell me we don't need one. We disagree, right? And I always hear James Houston is when he returns. Well, listen to this. This is coming from Dan Campbell and Pride of Detroit. Speaking of James Houston, he may be very similar to Ducey, Campbell said. Could be the end of the year potentially. But there again, I don't want to sit here and tell you, yes, and then we don't get him back. But I do think there's a chance by the end of the year we could get him back. So that means that both CJ Gardner-Johnson and James Houston, they might, especially James, they might not even rush him. And a lower leg, I think he broke his tibia, it said. Let me look again. His fibula. So that's kind of tough, man. That's a tough break as well. Fibula. I don't know why I said fibula. But anyway, so we might not see James Houston back. And now they have to decide if they're going to bring Josh Pascal back. If they bring Josh Pascal back, that's only going to leave 5 spots remaining. So now you have to ask a question. Are you going to bring back a Jason Kabinda, who was a non-factor on this team? Who are you going to bring back? Then you have the situation of, we just played 6 games, right? We have 11 to go. we'll get to a point where, for instance, if David Montgomery is put on IR, I don't think he will be, but if he was put on IR, that probably is going to, because if you look at the 6 people right now, we have exactly 6 people: CJ Gardner-Johnson, James Houston, Josh Pascal, Hendon Hooker, Matt Nelson, and Jason Kabinda. So if another person is put on IR, there are odds are that either that person or somebody currently on this list who's eligible to return will not be returning. So we don't even know if Josh Pascal is returning yet. They'll know probably coming out of the bye, because you're looking at week 7, week 8, bye week. And then coming out of the bye, they have to decide whether or not he's going to be in or not. So there's your updates on the injury, the injured reserve, who can come back, who's eligible, and they have some decisions to make. So I'm going to say it. We need a pass rush. James Houston may not be available. So we need to go get somebody. Right now, Danielle Hunter is really kind of growing on me. He had a sack yesterday, interdivision. We know how Brad and Kwesi are. That could be a real thing. We traded with them. We were sellers at the trade deadline last year. We could be buyers this year. The Minnesota Vikings probably will be either 2-5. They could be, well, they're 2-4 now, right? So they got 2 games before the bye week. They could be 2-6. They could be 3-5. I mean, they could be 4-4. I doubt it, because I think they got some stiff competition coming in. But those are my thoughts. You guys know that already. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Out of this list, that means that right now, nobody can go on IR and nobody can be elevated. Like if somebody goes on IR, like I said, somebody is not coming back. Somebody's not coming. So if we get another, right now, all of these players could come back and that would be it. And I doubt, I'm going to make a bold prediction that Jason Kabinda is shelved for the season. Hendon Hooker probably will not play as well. There's a big chance that Pascal could be put back, and James Houston. I think if they really believe CJ Gardner-Johnson can return, they won't shelve him. So we'll see. But that means that Khalil Dorsey, that would explain why Khalil Dorsey was getting work yesterday. I also think that Khalil Dorsey was getting work because we had to use Khalif Raymond as a wide receiver. And so we didn't want to kind of get him hurt with returning kicks and stuff like that when we needed him at the wide receiver position. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, do not forget about the live stream watch party happening this Sunday at Uno's Pizzeria. We've been before. Let me show y'all kind of some cool pictures of what it looked like when we were there last time. This is us at Uno's a month ago. We had about 35 people. I think she told me we have 22 tickets sold. That was as of this morning. And then I had a couple people reach out and tell me that they purchased some tickets. And I still have those 4 that I have available. If somebody does want to go, you just can email me at SyndicateSportsBrand, or you can DM me on Twitter at Lions Syndicate to contact me about potentially getting you some tickets to the watch party. We had a great time. We're going to try and do it once a month. And yeah, I mean, come out, man, have a good time. Got the bottomless pizza and all that stuff. So you will have a good time, man. I put on a good show. So you guys are awesome. Take care of yourself and each other. And as always, go Lions.